Hi, everyone. We are excited to talk about lobster today.
We are. Lobster is always a great thing to talk about, but it can be a little tricky to pair with wine. So we'll talk about some of the basics about lobster. One thing I think we all know about lobster is that it has a kind of sweetness to it, right? And kind of a almost a buttery, fatty quality about the flavor profile. It also has a little bit of texture, right? So it's got a little more texture than like something really soft,
like a scallop,
or a scallop or crab or something like that. So
it also will take its flavor from how it's prepared, but often it's prepared with butter, with cream, so you have that additional fattiness to it. So it doesn't hurt to have a little acidity in the wine to slice through it.
So we always like acidity to help just kind of refresh the palate and cut through that fat. Acid likes acid, but it also likes fat. So we will briefly talk about some basics here that we selected to go with lobster. So our first wine is the Pine Ridge Chenin Blanc Viognier. Very interesting wine here. Chenin Blanc is home in the Loire Valley in France. Famous wines like Vouvray, but it does grow in California too. And here is really interesting. In the North Coast, they have some old vine Chenin Blanc grown in cool climate, and it's made into a really low alcohol, kind of higher acidity wine. So you get all this really refreshing, crisp, clean quality, no oak, and a little bit of Viognier, which adds some richness and a little bit of floral quality.
And Pine Ridge is actually famous for this utterly accessible, I'll say it, inexpensive wine that is refreshing. But I'll tell you, when you smell it and you taste it, there's this beautiful smell of like burying your face in a rose bush, and also an illusion of sweetness on the palate, which is terrific because lobster has that innate sweetness. So we're not doing anything sweet, but we're playing into that. So you have a value wine that is aromatic, refreshing, and can definitely sub for any other unoaked accessible white like Chablis or Pinot Grigio.
And I love this. It's 12% alcohol. So it's light on its feet, and you can drink a little bit more of it. It's a nice alternative to Sauvignon Blanc, to Pinot Grigio, to unoaked Chardonnay. It's really fun.
Warning, and it's delicious.
And it's something different. Now we'll get into a more classic pairing here, is the California Chardonnay, right? Here we have more of the oak influence, vanilla, butter, butterscotch, kind of toasty flavors, really plays on that buttery quality of the lobster. So if you want to have that experience with that kind of buttery lobster, whatever you're doing to it, and it's got acid at the same time, it mirrors the richness, but it can cut through.
And a PS to all of this is a wonderful example of a barrel fermented Chardonnay, by the way, that's gone through malo, that gives that little buttery fragrance and flavor and a richness to it. You might think you don't like oaky or buttery Chardonnays, but I'm telling you, it's one of my favorite combos with something rich, like, lobster mac and cheese, lobster roll, where you have that soft, silky toastiness of the wine, and it literally melts into the food where you can't tell where one leaves off and the other begins. It's a really magical combination.
Lobster Thermidor, if you want to go really high end, maybe step it up to a fancy white Burgundy or something, but this is delicious.
It's well executed, it's delicious, and it proves the point that there's room for top California Chardonnay at the table. And this one's premium, but it's not nosebleed. It's completely accessible.
Yeah, totally. We're going to rosé. So we want to have some different styles here. Rosé, in a way, you can almost treat it like a white wine because it doesn't have a lot of tannin, or any tannin, really. But this, I think, is interesting if you want to pair it with different preparations, like if you do a grilled lobster, or we talked about Chiappino or a bouillabaisse, and you have richer flavors like saffron, or you have higher intensity preparations like the grilling, and you just want a little more flavor here as opposed to just the white wine.
You want to move into red wine land at least a bit, especially if you combine it with like other grilled foods like grilled vegetables, grilled mushrooms, etc. And this, I got to tell you, this is one of the leaders of this category. Beaujolais De Pueblo is one of the founding fathers of great cru, well, not Cru Beaujolais, in this case, Beaujolais Village, from the Kermit Lynch portfolio that elevated the perception of Beaujolais globally. And this Beaujolais Rosé Actually has tremendous aromatics. It smells not just like violets and lavender, but tons of berry fruit. And to your point, there's no real tannic grip, but it's got a little bit of a red wine mouthfeel, and it will absolutely.
It's got a little texture.
It's got a little texture.
Yeah.
It's ideal. We're going to be hot and smoky outside through August for sure,
Yep.
and into September. So I think it's something to reach for.
It's bone dry.
Mm-hmm.
So I know it's got a little bit of color, and people can get a little afraid of a little bit of color with rosé. Mm. This is bone dry. It's completely savory. It's going to work really well with that kind of sweetness and fattiness.
That's a perfect adjective to use for this wine. It's got a little bit of a savory, non-sweet character that's a bridge to the food.
Yep.
Totally.
And we got to have one red wine because, of course, somebody's going to want to drink red wine. Mm-hmm. And it can be a little tricky. We like Pinot Noir or even a red version of the Beaujolais because it has low tannin. And tannin can interact with shellfish and kind of have a metallic taste. So Pinot Noir is a good bridge to that. Now, of course, if you want to drink Cabernet with your lobster, do it. You know,
there's no wine police.
Yeah, drink what you want.
Drink what you. I will say though that if, let's say, you're in surf and turf land and you're thinking Cabernet Sauvignon, whoever's picking out the wine, nudge them into one that's maybe not a tannic beast, right? Something that's a little bit softer, something that's mature. I got to tell you, this has got to be the greatest steal in Pinot Noir that I can think of off the top of my head. This is from the Drouhin family of wines. It's their value Oregon label, and it's a lot of wine for the money.
It's very good. Mm-hmm. And you can chill it a little bit too. Mm-hmm. That's one of the benefits about a Pinot Noir is that it can take a little bit of a chill because it kind of acts like a white wine as it doesn't have a lot of tannin to it.
And, note to self, this time of year, I put everything in the fridge, except for big burly reds. But you could put this in the fridge alongside the rest of these, because if you bring this out first and pour it into your glasses, it'll warm up a good 5 degrees almost instantly. So there's no reason to wonder about what chilling it means. You don't have to immerse it in ice water. Anyway, Lobster, what could be more festive than that?
Yep.
Lots of alternatives for you to play with.